May 1943, North Atlantic. Captain Erich Topp stood in the conning tower of U-552, scanning the horizon through his Zeiss binoculars. The sea stretched endlessly in every direction, calm and seemingly empty. After 3 years of war, Topp had learned to trust his instincts, and right now, every fiber of his being screamed danger. Below deck, his crew prepared for what should have been just another patrol. U-552 had sent 35 Allied ships to the bottom, nearly 200,000 tons of steel and cargo. Topp wore the Knight's Cross with oak leaves, one of Germany's most decorated submarine commanders. His men whispered that he was the ghost of the Atlantic, appearing from nowhere to strike and vanishing before the escorts could respond. But on this morning, the ghost was about to encounter something that would shatter everything he knew about submarine warfare. The convoy materialized at dawn like a floating city on the horizon. 40 merchant ships stretched across the water, laden with supplies destined for Britain. Topp's pulse quickened. This was the kind of target that made careers, the kind that could turn the tide of wars. His hand moved toward the attack order, and then he heard it. A sound that shouldn't exist in 1943. A high-pitched electronic pulse cutting through the air, coming from directly above. His blood ran cold because the sky was completely empty. Just 6 months earlier, Germany was winning the submarine war. U-boats operated in coordinated wolfpacks, guided by intelligence so good they could read British naval codes almost in real time. Admiral Dönitz commanded over 400 operational submarines, enough firepower to strangle Britain's supply lines completely. The numbers told a brutal story. In November 1942 alone, U-boats sank 119 Allied ships, totaling 729,000 tons. British merchant fleet losses exceeded new construction by 300,000 tons every single month. At this rate, Britain would run out of food and fuel by summer 1943. Winston Churchill later admitted that the U-boat threat was the only thing that truly terrified him during the entire war, more than the Battle of Britain, more than the threat of invasion. The mathematics were simple and devastating. Germany was sinking ships faster than the Allies could build them. But by May 1943, something had changed. Something fundamental that nobody could explain. Allied shipping losses had dropped by 75% in just 3 months. U-boat losses had tripled. Experienced commanders like Topp, men who had survived dozens of patrols through the deadliest waters on Earth, were reporting encounters that made no sense. Ships detected them in total darkness. Aircraft found them in heavy fog. Destroyers tracked them underwater with accuracy that seemed supernatural. The German Naval High Command was completely baffled. Their intelligence suggested no major breakthrough in Allied technology. Their cryptographers confirmed that British codes remained secure. Yet somehow, Allied forces were hunting U-boats with precision that defied explanation. Topp had heard the rumors in the officers' mess at WWII, wild theories about secret weapons, about traitors in their ranks, about some kind of supernatural detection. He dismissed it all as paranoid fantasy from exhausted men. Until that morning in May, when he heard the pulse. Topp grabbed the voice pipe and screamed the alarm. The crew reacted instantly, years of training taking over. Klaxons blared through the boat. Men scrambled down the ladder. The diesel engines cut off as electric motors engaged. U-552's bow tilted downward, seeking the safety of depth. But even as they dove, Topp knew something was terribly wrong. The electronic pulse had come from directly overhead, but the sky had been empty except for scattered clouds at 3,000 feet. Nothing visible, nothing explainable. He ordered them to level at 60 meters and switched to silent running. In the control room, his first watch officer Klaus Bergmann looked at him with questioning eyes, waiting for an explanation. Topp admitted he'd seen nothing, but he'd heard something. An electronic signal on a frequency he'd never encountered before. Bergmann suggested ASTIC, but they'd still been on the surface. This was something else entirely. They waited in silence. The only sounds the hum of electric motors and the creak of the pressure hull. Topp checked his watch. 5 minutes passed, then 10, then 15. Then they heard it. The unmistakable drone of aircraft engines growing louder, coming straight toward them. The hydrophone operator called out twin engines, heavy, probably a Liberator bomber. Ice filled Topp's stomach. They had been 12 kilometers from the convoy when they dove. The Liberator should have been searching near the merchant ships, circling the convoy in standard patrol patterns. Yet somehow it had come straight to their exact position, as if it knew precisely where they were hiding. The depth charges began falling moments later. 6 explosions, each one closer than the last. The hull groaned under the pressure. Light bulbs shattered. Men grabbed handholds as the boat pitched violently. But U-552 was deep enough. The charges exploded above them, deadly but not fatal. After 20 minutes, the Liberator moved away. Topp waited another full hour before surfacing, standard procedure. When they finally broke through, the convoy had vanished over the horizon. A full day's pursuit wasted. That night, Topp wrote carefully in his patrol log about being detected by unknown means, about aircraft appearing within minutes despite no visual contact. He recommended immediate investigation of possible new Allied detection technology. He didn't know it yet, but he had just encountered centimetric radar, a technology so secret that even most Allied commanders didn't fully understand how it worked. 3 days later, Topp found another convoy. This time he was more careful, more cautious. He stayed submerged during daylight, tracking the merchant ships by periscope, watching and waiting. He would attack at night, when U-boats held every advantage. Submarines in 1943 were actually surface vessels that could dive temporarily, not true submarines. They were faster on the surface, had better visibility, could use their deck guns to conserve precious torpedoes. Night attacks were the U-boats' natural hunting ground. Darkness made them invisible to aircraft and extremely difficult for escorts to spot visually. At 2,300 hours, U-552 surfaced 8 kilometers from the convoy. The night was perfect for an attack. Overcast sky, no moon, visibility less than 500 meters. Topp could see the dark shapes of merchant ships silhouetted against the stars, but they couldn't possibly see him. He called battle stations and ordered the torpedo crew to prepare tubes 1 through 4. They worked quickly and efficiently. Within minutes, all 4 bow tubes were loaded and ready. Topp calculated the firing solution personally, muscle memory from 3 years of war guiding his calculations. Speed, distance, angle. He could do it almost by instinct now. His hand rose to give the firing order. Then the sea around them exploded in brilliant white light. A star shell burst directly overhead, turning night into artificial day. U-552 was suddenly exposed, caught in light like an insect under a microscope. Topp spun around and saw a British destroyer charging straight at them, bow wave white in the glare. It had appeared from absolutely nowhere. No warning, no radar contact on their equipment, just suddenly they're bearing down on them. He screamed the dive order, but knew it was too late. The destroyer was too close, moving too fast. As U-552's bow dipped below the surface, Topp saw the depth charge racks on the destroyer's stern tilt backward. The first pattern of charges exploded just as they passed 30 meters. The boat bucked like a wild horse. Cork insulation rained from overhead. The main electrical panel sparked and went dark. Damage reports flooded in. Stern diving planes jammed. Hydraulic leak in the control room. Port electric motor overheating. More depth charges fell, closer this time. The pressure hull groaned, a sound every submariner dreaded because it meant the steel was flexing beyond its design limits. Topp ordered them to 180 meters, deeper than recommended, but they had no choice. For 3 hours, the destroyer hunted them with uncanny precision. It stayed directly overhead, dropping depth charges in a methodical pattern that seemed to anticipate every move Topp made. Every time he tried to slip away, the destroyer adjusted course to follow, as if reading his mind. Finally, at 0300 hours, the attack stopped. Topp waited another 2 hours before risking a surface. When they finally broke through, the convoy was long gone. By the 3rd week of May, Topp had sunk only 2 ships, a pathetic result for a commander of his experience and reputation. Worse, he'd been forced to dive 14 times to avoid aircraft. His fuel was running dangerously low. His crew was exhausted, nerves frayed. But the real problem was the pattern he was seeing, a pattern that made absolutely no sense according to everything he knew about naval warfare. That evening, Topp spread his charts across the wardroom table. Bergman and the chief engineer joined him. He marked every detection with a red pencil, 14 incidents in 3 weeks. "What do you see?" he asked them. Bergman studied the marks carefully. "They're all different situations," he said. "Day, night, fog, clear weather. Surface, periscope depth, deep submersion. Near convoys, far from convoys. Exactly, Top replied. There's no pattern to when we're detected, which means they can always detect us. The three men looked at each other, the implications staggering. Top pulled out another chart showing U-boat losses across the entire Atlantic theater. The numbers were devastating. In the first 20 days of May alone, 31 U-boats had been sunk. That was more than the entire month of April, more than any month in the entire war. He drew a graph showing two lines, one going up, one going down. Allied merchant ship production versus U-boat sinking rates. The lines crossed in July. If this continues, Top said quietly, by summer we won't be able to sink enough ships to matter. The convoy system will be unbreakable. He didn't need to finish the thought. They all understood. Germany's entire war strategy depended on starving Britain into surrender. If the U-boats failed, Germany would lose the war. Bergman voiced the question they were all thinking. What changed? 6 months ago we were winning. Now we can barely survive a patrol. Top shook his head. He didn't know, but whatever it wasn't just one thing. They were being detected on the surface, probably some kind of advanced radar. They were being found at night, when that should be impossible. And they were being tracked underwater with accuracy that exceeded ASTIC by an order of magnitude. The chief engineer pulled out a technical manual and pointed to their METOX receivers. These should detect British radar at 30 kilometers, he said. But we're being found by aircraft that METOX never picks up. Either they've developed radar on a different frequency, or METOX doesn't work anymore. Which means every U-boat in the Atlantic is sailing blind, Top finished. The implications were terrifying. Hundreds of U-boats were operating under the assumption that METOX would warn them of approaching aircraft. If that assumption was wrong, they were all sailing into death traps. Top made a dangerous decision. He was breaking radio silence to warn Naval Command. British direction-finding stations could triangulate radio transmissions within minutes, but the risk was worth it. He drafted the message carefully, encoding reports of repeated detection by unknown means, of aircraft locating them in zero visibility, of night attacks by destroyers with impossible accuracy. He requested immediate technical analysis. The radio operator transmitted in a 3-second burst, then they dove and changed course. The reply came 6 hours later. Your report acknowledged. Similar reports from multiple boats. Technical investigation underway. Continue patrol. Top read the message twice. Similar reports from multiple boats. So it wasn't just you, 552. It wasn't just him losing his edge or making mistakes. The entire U-boat force was encountering the same phenomenon. Something had fundamentally changed in the Battle of the Atlantic, and the German Navy had no idea what it was. But that wasn't the whole story. May 24, 1943. U-552 was running on the surface, charging batteries after a submerged day. It was 0400 hours, the darkest part of the night, supposedly the safest time for a U-boat. Top was in the conning tower with 2 lookouts scanning the sky continuously, binoculars sweeping in overlapping arcs. Standard procedure that had kept them alive for 3 years. The METOX receiver was completely silent, showing no radar emissions detected. Then, without any warning whatsoever, searchlights blazed from directly overhead. A Liberator bomber appeared out of the darkness, already in its attack run, less than 200 meters away. So close that Top could see the pilot's face in the cockpit. There was no time to dive, no time to man the anti-aircraft guns, no time to do anything except watch the depth charges fall toward them. The charges hit the water as U-552's bow went under. The first explosion caught them at 15 meters, shallow enough that the full force of the blast hammered the hull. The lights went out. Emergency lighting flickered on, then died. In the sudden darkness, men shouted, metal groaned, water sprayed from ruptured pipes. Top pulled himself to the control room, his ears ringing from the blast. The reports came in rapid succession, each one worse than the last. Forward torpedo room, taking water. Stern planes not responding. Pressure hull cracked near frame 47. Battery compartment flooding. Top processed the information with cold clarity born from years of experience. U-552 was dying. They had minutes, maybe less, before the boat became uncontrollable. Compressed air roared into the ballast tanks. The bow tilted upward. U-552 clawed toward the surface like a wounded animal fighting for one last breath. They broke through at 0407 hours. Water cascaded off the deck. The Liberator was still there, circling for another attack run. Topp gave the order to prepare to scuttle. The crew moved with practiced efficiency despite their fear. This was the moment every submariner trained for and prayed would never come. They opened the scuttling valves, set demolition charges on the code books and Enigma machine, and climbed onto the deck. The Liberator made another pass, but didn't drop charges. The pilot could see men on deck and knew U-552 was finished. Topp was the last man out. He stood in the conning tower one final time, watching his boat die. U-552 settled lower in the water, bow rising as the stern filled with seawater. 3 years of war. 35 ships sunk. Countless patrols survived against impossible odds. And now, destroyed by an enemy they never saw coming, by technology they didn't know existed. As the water reached the conning tower, Topp jumped into the cold Atlantic. When he surfaced, U-552 was gone, just bubbles and debris marking where she'd been moments before. The Liberator dropped life rafts and flew away. A British destroyer arrived 2 hours later and picked up the survivors. 42 men out of a crew of 48 made it. On the destroyer's deck, wrapped in blankets and drinking hot tea, Topp finally got his answers. A young British officer showed him the radar display, a circular screen with glowing green dots scattered across it. "That's how we found you," he said, not unkindly. "Centimetric radar. We can see you from 30 kilometers away in any weather, day or night. Your METOX can't detect it because it operates on a completely different wavelength." Topp stared at the screen in stunned silence. Each green dot was a U-boat. Each one was visible, trackable, vulnerable, with nowhere to hide. "How long have you had this?" he asked. "Since March," the officer replied. "Every aircraft, every escort ship. The entire Atlantic is covered." Topp felt something break inside him. Not despair exactly. He was too professional for that. But the cold certainty that the war was lost. The U-boat campaign had depended entirely on invisibility, on being able to hide in the vastness of the Atlantic, to strike without warning and vanish before escorts could respond. But if the Allies could see every U-boat, track every movement, coordinate every response, then there was no hiding, no surprise, no advantage. The mathematics were simple and brutal. Germany could build U-boats faster than the Allies could sink them, but the Allies could build merchant ships even faster. And now, with centimetric radar, they could protect those ships with unprecedented efficiency. May 1943 became known as Black May in the German Navy. 43 U-boats were sunk, nearly 25% of the entire operational fleet gone in 1 month. Over 1,000 submariners died in the dark waters of the Atlantic. Admiral Dönitz, confronted with losses he couldn't explain and couldn't stop, made the only decision possible. On May 24th, the same day U-552 was sunk, he ordered all U-boats to withdraw from the North Atlantic. It was an admission of defeat. For the first time in the war, German U-boats were retreating from their primary hunting grounds. The official explanation called it temporary redeployment for technical upgrades, but every submariner knew the truth. They had lost the Battle of the Atlantic, and they would never recover their advantage. The technology that defeated them was centimetric radar, specifically the cavity magnetron developed at the University of Birmingham in 1940 and refined by American engineers at MIT's Radiation Laboratory. Traditional radar operated on wavelengths of 1.5 meters, which made it detectable and relatively imprecise. Centimetric radar operated on wavelengths of just 10 centimeters, hence the name. This shorter wavelength provided dramatically better resolution and was completely invisible to German METOX receivers, which were designed to detect the older, longer wavelengths. By March 1943, every Allied escort ship and patrol aircraft in the Atlantic carried centimetric radar. They could detect surfaced U-boats at 30 kilometers in perfect darkness or heavy fog. They could track periscopes at 5 kilometers. They could even detect snorkels, the breathing tubes U-boats used to run diesel engines while submerged. The impact was immediate and absolutely devastating. In March 1943, U-boats sank 108 Allied ships. In June 1943, they sank just 28. By July, the number dropped to 17. Meanwhile, Allied merchant ship production accelerated dramatically. American shipyards were launching a new Liberty ship every 42 hours. British yards were producing escorts faster than U-boats could sink them. But the real victory wasn't just in the numbers or in any single technology. It was in the system the Allies had built. Centimetric radar was just one piece of a comprehensive anti-submarine warfare system that included high-frequency direction finding that could locate U-boats by their radio transmissions, improved depth charges with magnetic detonators, hedgehog forward-throwing mortars that could attack without losing sonar contact, escort carriers that provided air cover in the mid-Atlantic gap, ultra-intelligence from decoded Enigma messages that the Germans never discovered, and coordinated convoy tactics developed through operational research. Each technology was effective individually, but together they created a system that made U-boat operations completely unsustainable. German naval intelligence knew something had changed, but they never fully understood what. They suspected improved radar, but vastly underestimated its capabilities. They knew about direction finding, but didn't realize how precisely it could locate transmissions. They never discovered that Enigma had been broken. Even after the war ended, many German commanders believed they'd been defeated by superior numbers, not superior technology. Erich Topp survived the war. He spent 2 years in a British prison camp, then returned to Germany to rebuild his life. In 1958, he joined the new West German Navy, eventually rising to the rank of Rear Admiral. In interviews late in his life, Topp spoke about May 1943 with a mixture of respect and bitterness. Respect for the Allied technological achievement, for the system they'd built. Bitterness that so many men had died because German Naval Command refused to believe their reports. "We told them something had changed," Topp said in a 1990 interview. "We told them we were being detected by unknown means, patrol after patrol, but they kept sending us out until we were all dead or captured." The Allies didn't just build better radar. They built a better system. They coordinated their technologies, shared their intelligence, adapted their tactics. We kept fighting the same way we'd always fought and wondered why we were losing. By June 1944, when the Allies invaded Normandy, the U-boat threat had been completely neutralized. Over 5,000 ships crossed the English Channel in the largest amphibious operation in history. Not one was sunk by U-boats. The Battle of the Atlantic was won by a technology most people had never heard of, a cavity magnetron the size of a human fist producing radio waves 10 centimeters long. It changed submarine warfare forever, rendering an entire generation of U-boats obsolete overnight. But more than that, it changed the outcome of World War II. The battle was won by engineers and scientists as much as by sailors and airmen, won in university laboratories and on factory floors, in the invisible war of technology and intelligence that most people never saw. The ghost of the Atlantic had finally met something he couldn't hide from, and it cost him everything.